coordinator with Riverside County's Continuum of Care. I know it is 3 o'clock in the afternoon and y'all are hanging in there, so thank you. I'm going to try to go through, our PIT orientation, give you all more information about PIT, make sure that everyone feels comfortable. And the only way to feel comfortable is when you're talking to somebody else about it. So make sure that today you talk to somebody else about PIT, just to make sure that you know all you have to know about PIT. And then PIT is our homeless point in time count. So you'll hear us say PIT a lot. Just talking again about our homeless point in time count for 2023. Jesus, we're recording. Awesome. Can I change my slides? Can I do both? Yeah. Okay. So again, thank you all so much for being here on this meeting. I know that everyone has a lot of meetings going on, and so you chose to be here for this homeless point in time count meeting. Thank you all. So what is the homeless point in time count? Can you use the little icon and just raise your hand if you've joined in a PIT before, if you were a PIT volunteer, if you were a deployment site, if you had any involvement with PIT, or if you know what PIT is. And then be careful because I'm going to call on you to see if you know what PIT is. I'm just kidding. But okay, very well. So what is PIT? So our homeless point in time count is literally a count that we do across the county to count all of our sheltered and unsheltered individuals that are experiencing homelessness on a certain day. And it's always in January. And again, we'll talk about why, but it's a literal count. We have tons of volunteers go out and count our unsheltered neighbors. And it's conducted in every community nationwide. So all, communities have to conduct a count to then report that to HUD. And again, it's a snapshot of homelessness in our county, right? We're counting for a few hours one morning in January. And so it really is just a snapshot of the homeless population in our county. And it's done every year in January. And then hopefully we'll start doing it every other year because, as you all know, it takes a lot of planning, it takes a lot of staff, a lot of volunteers, and a lot of effort to conduct the homeless point in time count every year. But you all have been amazing participants thus far. So thank you if your agency has participated, if you volunteered, if you've donated items, we appreciate it. And again, we're just trying to get the best, most accurate representation of our homeless population in our county. So why does PIT take place during the last 10 days of January? Does anybody know why we do it the last 10 days of January? Okay. No worries. So the reason why we do it the last 10 days of January is because it's supposed to be during like the coldest months where homeless individuals are most likely to access shelters. And the reason why we want to do it when there's, a large population accessing our shelters is so that we can do a service-based count and count how many individuals, right, are in some sort of shelter, resource, housing, right, emergency housing. We want to make sure that we capture that amount along with going out to do the literal count. And so that's why we do it in January, and everyone does it, in the same time frame at the end of January, just for consistency purposes. But I think a great example that we put in our PowerPoint was some people can afford to stay in a motel, but only for the first few weeks after receiving their public benefits. Payments at the beginning of the month. So, right, we're also trying to catch individuals at the end of the month when, you probably already ran out of funds if you were staying in a motel or, renting some other sort of hotel for emergency shelter. And again, we want to capture the most accurate representation of those experiencing homelessness. So who is counted in the PIT count? So according to HUD, and we do follow HUD guidelines every year, anything that they say we need to implement, things that we might need to change, we follow, those HUD guidelines. And so the HUD definition for homeless is anywhere that's not meant for human habitation, right? So a bench, a park, right, under a tree, under a bridge, those are all not suitable for human habitation. And so that would be a part of our unsheltered count, which is all of the individuals and families that are living on the streets and are literally homeless. And then we do a sheltered count, which is all the individuals and families that are residing in a shelter, are accessing, our community shelters and resources. And we try to get a lot of agencies to participate in what is a service-based count, which we'll talk about later as well. So that's another way that your agency can participate and also count individuals that you are serving. But we do get our sheltered count data from all of those that are accessing the shelters. Does this make sense? Unsheltered and our sheltered population. And again, if at any point you have questions, please raise your hand, and then our COC team that's on the call, if you can just let me know in case I miss it as well. But please feel free to ask questions at any point. And so who is counted in the PIT count? So again, talking about our sheltered and unsheltered population, it's our sheltered, those that are in emergency shelters or transitioning transitional housing placements, and then unsheltered, right? Parks, abandoned buildings. Just think about, anywhere that, it is not okay for people to live in. And so our sheltered data is collected from our HMIS system, and it's all of the clients that are enrolled, right, in our shelters and in the transitional housing programs. And that's kind of where we get that information from. And then our unsheltered PIT count comes from just canvassing the communities to count and survey individuals. And so if you've never been on a PIT count before, and you're like, I really want to join PIT this year, I want all the knowledge, how do I start? So you're already doing step one, which is attending, an orientation or a community planning session and getting familiar with PIT. Why we do it, who we count, and now you're like, okay, now I want to go out and count. So soon we're going to be giving out volunteer trainings, which you'll do just to know how to engage an individual, and then you get trained on the app that we use. We use a Survey 123 app. It's on your phone, so as long as you have access to a phone and you're able to walk a good amount of distance to canvass an area in the community, then you're on your way to volunteering for this year's point in time count. And so just why is the count important? So the count is important not only for us to receive funding that is going to be based off of the data that we provide HUD, which is, how many sheltered and unsheltered individuals are experiencing homelessness in Riverside County. But it also helps to know where there's a high population of those that are experiencing housing instability and need resources. And so being able to look at our point in time count data, and let me tell you, as someone who's been working a lot with our PIT data and just making sure that, we're applying for all the grants that are available to us. I've used the PIT count data for all the grants. And so being able to really display the need in our community and then the need in specific communities helps us to allocate right funds, resources to the areas that need it the most. And again, state homeless funding allocations is based on our PIT count. And then our PIT count data will continue to provide those updates. And then we can compare those to national and local progress as you all might know or not, we have created a homeless action plan, which states out, how we want to hopefully end homelessness. And so the PIT count data is a huge part, of seeing how many individuals are in need of services in our county at one point in time. So how do we conduct the unsheltered PIT count data? Usually you'll engage an individual for 5 to 10 minutes. And when you start doing the volunteer training will explain kind of how to engage someone, how to let them know that you're going to conduct an interview and if they're interested in participating. As you all know, we also have the city's pickup incentive bags so that volunteers can take out with them while they're surveying someone. And so the way that you would engage someone is to see if they're interested in an incentive bag that has some warm items, as well as some resources, asking them if they have 5 to 10 minutes to engage in a survey. And the first question will be, where did you sleep last night? So that the survey can determine if someone is experiencing homelessness or not. And then then it will continue. Or if someone says, I was in a house with my parents, then the survey will end there. And so that's why the volunteer training is so important, so that you can get all that information on how to use this app and then how to conduct the survey and how to engage individuals. And so the interview lasts about 5 to 10 minutes, and it's just an interview survey. Where'd you sleep? Are you homeless? How did you end up homeless? Are you former foster youth, right? How many individuals are homeless with you? Questions, right, about someone's homeless housing status. Um, and so another option is an observational survey. So if you're not able to engage someone, but you see them, you know that they're experiencing homelessness because you can see that they're literally, right, that their clothes might not be the best, right? They're maybe experiencing a mental health crisis and you don't want to go and engage someone, that's okay. You can conduct an observational survey. And again, the volunteer training is so crucial in order to explain, right, how would you tell if someone, is experiencing homelessness, and can you conduct an observational survey on that individual? And so doing the volunteer training and the training for the app is really, really important if you plan to volunteer. So please look out for those dates and those trainings, and please put them on your calendar. But we are going to be using the Survey 123 mobile app. If you do have a mobile device, during the training, they do ask you to download it. They see if you can do a sample survey. And again, it's important to engage in those so that you know that you're using it correctly and you're engaging individuals on the correct app as well. And so that's all you need is, to be able to walk, a mobile device, and then be able to download the Survey 123 app. This is just showing us kind of Riverside County. And so if you haven't seen a map of Riverside County, which I'm sure everyone has, Riverside County is huge. And so it's a lot of coverage. It's 28 cities. We're the fourth largest county in California and the 10th largest in the US. So it's a lot of space to cover, which is why we're always asking for a lot of volunteers. We really need a lot of people out there to canvass the area to make sure that we get an accurate count. And again, especially in certain districts, it's huge and it's a lot of area to cover. So please volunteer if you're able to, and please, if you're able to encourage others to volunteer, we can use all the help we can get. But this is, yeah. So Riverside County is huge. And usually the people that we have out counting already are experienced outreach workers, staff, event coordinators for the Come and Be Connected events. And then we have, of course, all the staff in Riverside County that's able to participate from different departments. And then we have those that are counting, right, in their shelters, and then those that are counting in their organizations as people come in experiencing homelessness. So the 2023 PIT count implementation really targets these following areas. So making sure that, right, and again, as the homeless youth coordinator, we do need a lot of volunteers for our youth count as well. And then when I show you all the dates, you'll see when the youth count will be conducted, but it is 3 days at the end of January. And we do need a lot of volunteers for those 3 evenings as well. So we are trying to make sure that we get an accurate count of our youth, our service-based count, so those that are accessing services on the day that we're conducting the PIT count, and just making sure that we're providing trainings to city staff, to all of those that run agencies and organizations, making sure that everyone's familiar with PIT. And is able to access, right, the trainings, the survey. We want to make sure that all community members are engaged, and that's why we really promote our community planning sessions so that all community stakeholders can attend, and engage in the conversation of how do we roll out the best PIT ever, which is going to be in 23. And just making sure that we're being aware of those target populations, our underserved groups, and our most vulnerable populations as well. During the day of the count, we have connected individuals to APS, youth that are minors to Operation Safe House, those that are elderly, those that are veterans. And so really making sure that we're targeting all of those underserved and vulnerable populations, and just making sure that we have an accessible mobile app and that we're canvassing all the areas, including the unincorporated areas, and then making sure that everything is easy for our community partners and stakeholders to access. And that includes our volunteer registration website. And again, when that opens, you'll get an email. We'll blast it on social media. You'll get it through Rivco. So you'll know when volunteer registration opens, and we'll be asking everybody to register to volunteer as well. Just some of the target areas. So this is a community planning session that I keep mentioning, and this is our flyer. And if you don't have this flyer, or if you don't have these dates on your calendar yet, please let us know in the chat, or feel free to email me or email our coc@rivco.org. And I'll go ahead and add my email in the chat later, but please email us so that you can get this flyer. The dates are hyperlinked, so you can just add them to your calendar. Our next community planning session will be December 1st from 3 to 4 p.m. And again, our community planning meetings are really just general oversights of how we're going to roll out PIT count for 2023, and what are some of those logistics, and what are we currently working on to make sure that we have a successful PIT count. And so again, we ask that all community members, all stakeholders, all departments really join our meetings to go over PIT. And then we'll have another meeting January 5th from 3 to 4 as well. And then outside of our community planning meetings, we do have subcommittee work groups. And so if you're interested in joining a subcommittee work group, we also work through some of the PIT logistics during our COC meetings and our youth advisory committee meetings. So if you're a youth provider, if you're interested in the youth count, please join our youth advisory committee meetings, and I can send you that information as well. But if you're interested in any other aspects, or joining any working groups for PIT, right? It can be anywhere from the Come and Be Connected events, the youth count, the general count, the service-based count, right? Maybe you're more interested in looking at the survey in the app. Please let us know how you want to get involved and what are your interests, and we'll connect you to the right working groups and the right meetings to make sure that we're getting member feedback and our community partners feedback every step of the count. This is our 2022 homeless point in time count. And again, just so that you see last year's count, our total count was 3,316 individuals that were considered homeless. Of those, 1,336 were sheltered, meaning that they were already in a shelter, they were accessing services, they were in emergency transitional housing, and then 1,980 were unsheltered, so those that were interviewed out on the street on the day of the count. And then of those, of this total count, we have 312 youth that were counted on the day of the count as well, over the span of the 3-day youth count. And of the 312, 75 were sheltered, meaning that they were probably in Operation Safe House. They were enrolled in another rapid rehousing program. They were living in a transitional housing program as well. And of those, 237 were unsheltered, so living on the street, at a park, and they were interviewed one of the 3 days that the youth count was taking place. And so again, we want an accurate number, of the unsheltered homeless population, the sheltered and unsheltered homeless population in our county. And we know that, there are certain cities, right, that might have these numbers alone. I know that I've encountered 312 in the last 6 months, so there's no way that there's 312 across the county. But again, we need volunteers to make sure that we can get an accurate count, and we need to make sure that all agencies are participating in our service-based count if they are providing services to those that might be homeless during PIT count. We are working with our city leads, and so Laura Gonzalez, who is the homeless point in time count coordinator, works closely with all of the city leaders to make sure that the cities know how they're going to implement the count in their respective cities, and making sure that they have what they need in terms of volunteers, PIT information, and just the extra support to roll out PIT. And so these are just some of the the things that the site leads will take care of, and then the county coordinators. And so if you are a site lead, or if you're a city lead, you probably have already joined other meetings with Laura Gonzalez in terms of PIT. But if you are wondering who is your city lead, or you want to get connected to those in your city that are rolling out the count, please let us know and we'd be happy to connect you. And again, as our county coordinators, we want to make sure that we have enough volunteers and that we're able to assist site leaders. And so these are kind of like our tasks. These are the dates for the homeless point in time count. And so our homeless count, our general homeless street-based count, will be Wednesday, January 25th, from 5:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. And all cities are going to start at the same time, to make sure that we have um, that it's even across the board. Everyone's starting at the same time for the general count. Our homeless youth count will be January 25th through Friday, January 27th from 2 to 8 p.m. And so again, if you're able to assist in the evenings, please consider volunteering for the youth count. And then our service-based count will be Wednesday, January 25th through Friday, January 27th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so again, our service-based count are all of those organizations um, that are already providing shelter and services to those that are experiencing housing instability. Our unincorporated areas, that will be a 7-day post count. So making sure that 7 days after this count, we're able to go into those unincorporated areas in case there are people experiencing homelessness there. And then our Come and Be Connected events. So if you are interested in our Come and Be Connected events, you can email myself and I'll put my email in the chat. Those events are going to be 2 to 6 during the days of the count. Probably not Wednesday because it is a full day with the general count, the youth count, and then a Come and Be Connected event. So we're thinking about Thursday and Friday having those 2 dates be dedicated to a Come and Be Connected event. And again, our Come and Be Connected events are pretty much resource fairs for youth to come and get services, be surveyed for the count, and get connected to any other maybe emergency housing if they need as well. So those events were rolled out last year, and we did have them at the youth opportunity centers. We had one at the CFLCs, and so that was a great location for youth. We just want to make sure that we have enough advertisement and that your agencies are promoting these events so that your youth clients that you're working with can attend, or any other youth, during those days. And then we will do a post count as needed for any areas that might have not been covered, right, for whatever reason, bad weather, unsafe, things like that. We want to make sure that we have that 7-day post count if needed. So getting the survey. So kind of like we talked about before, it's important to do the volunteer training so that you know how to download the survey, how to use the app, and to be able to make sure that you can go in and survey an individual when you come across them during the general count or the youth count. During volunteer trainings, volunteers are provided with the information to download it onto your mobile device. So again, as long as you have a mobile device, you should be able to download the survey, and the volunteer training will teach you how to use it. So getting the survey set up, you would open your browser and you would just look up 2023 Riverside County Survey. Right now it is pending on our, or you could scan a QR code, and then you will be able to see the form automatically open up and it'll just show you the survey. And then you can confirm that the survey says 2023, not 2022. And again, this is all information that will be reviewed during the volunteer training. Volunteers, we cannot express enough how much we need volunteers. In 2022, we were able to recruit 719 volunteers for the point in time count. And here you can see the volunteer types broken down by, county staff, law enforcement, city staff, community volunteers, school districts, and then others. And so again, if you're not going to volunteer, it's okay if you're working at an agency that can participate in the service-based count, or if you want to hold a Come and Be Connected event, or you want to be a vendor at a Come and Be Connected event, that might be another option. There's tons of ways to participate in the point in time count. And so again, it's forwarding these emails to community stakeholders so that they're able to join the meetings. I have to sneeze, sorry. I apologize. And then again, just being able to promote the event and just spread awareness for our point in time count, sharing the flyers, social media posts. There's tons of ways to get involved and participate. So volunteer recruitment, training, and management. Again, it is a countywide effort. We are looking for volunteers across the county to canvass their areas and their cities and their communities during the point in time count to be able to survey individuals, do observations, or conduct a service-based count at your agency. And so our PIT count planning team will manage volunteer list. And so I'm a part of the PIT count planning team. And so managing volunteer list, we will send volunteers where is needed. So if you need volunteers in your area, or if you're only going to use, city staff, please let us know that information. Again, we're gonna provide the trainings for the app as well as for the count. So please look out for the volunteer registration to open and for those volunteer trainings, and please complete your volunteer trainings. And again, we're going to assign those volunteers to deployment sites to assist your community in the count. And then we will assign a county coordinator, so someone from our team to make sure that they're there to support you as you're rolling out the count in your city. And again, we will provide you the incentive bags, which are drawstring bags or backpacks that have warm items, gloves, beanies, socks, hygiene kits, resources. And again, the cities, as they get their incentives, they will probably add their own resources as well. And I encourage you to add your own resources into your incentive bags for your cities. Or if you have anything that you would like us to add to the incentive bags, please let us know and reach out. And again, we will email all the volunteers and make sure that everyone is on board with the time, date, and locations. So that's good that we take care of that. Our maps. So city leaders work with code and law enforcement to identify encampments in their areas. And so they will create maps that will show hotspots and that will show where large groups, right, of unsheltered individuals gather, or where they have an encampment site. And so that's how they will create maps, and then they'll divide those maps into smaller parts for volunteers to walk around and canvass specific areas of their city, to conduct the count and to survey individuals. Again, you're only surveying if it's safe, and if you're able to approach them. If you're not, please do an observational survey. And again, the volunteer trainings will provide you more information and guidance as to who you would do an observational and who you would survey. But that's where the maps come from. And again, they're divided so that volunteers can canvass specific areas. And then the PIT count planning team, which I am a part of, meets with city leaders to assist in creating these canvassing maps. So again, if you're interested in creating a map, you know your city very well, you've lived there for, a long time or your whole life, and you know where these areas are that need to be canvassed, please let us know and we can add you to that working group if that's something that you're interested in. And then creating counting teams. So the cities will create their teams, and again, we will deploy volunteers as needed. So we do ask, cities if they're going to need volunteers or if they're only going to use city staff, and then if so, how many volunteers will they need? Again, depending how large their city is and how much canvassing they're doing. But we do like to send volunteers in teams, again, for safety purposes. We make sure that law enforcement is involved, and they have been very supportive in keeping everybody safe during the PIT count, and just making sure that all situations are safe for our volunteers to go in and canvass. So again, thank you so much to our law enforcement for always being so supportive and keeping us safe. And so again, we're going to finalize counting teams the morning of the count. And there may be less volunteers on the sites than we anticipate, which is why we need volunteers if they're going to commit to it, to count, to let us know, as early as possible if they're not going to, so that we know that there's enough volunteers at all sites. And everybody has a team to go out and count with. And usually our teams are about 3 to 4 individuals. And the roles of our team is there's always going to be a team leader, from our previous experience with the count, we know that somebody needs to lead our group of volunteers, make sure that they're staying on track with the map and canvassing, making sure that someone's aware of safety. There's law enforcement escorts, someone who might look out and just make sure that those that are surveying are safe and might carry the incentives. If someone is driving, or an outreach team is going out with some volunteers and they're driving a large van, someone will drive and make sure that volunteers are getting to where they need to get to continue to count and survey individuals. And then those that have done the training can conduct a survey, will also be a part of that team. So this is kind of what we incorporate in all of our teams to make sure that everyone is good to go for the count. And again, every team should have a site coordinator's phone number. So when in doubt, call me. Just kidding. But everyone will have all the information they need of all of those that you can contact if you need additional support. And of course, you're welcome to call me if you need something. Day of the point in time count. So we prepare a volunteer communication and welcome table so that all volunteers are able to check in. They're able to let us know that they're there, how long they're going to stay, if they're only doing the morning count. During the youth count, there are 2 sessions so that people aren't overwhelmed if they did do the general count. So again, it's just where you would check in, grab a map, make sure that there's other volunteers with you, make sure there's a site coordinator or a team lead who is going to join. And then you would get all your information from there assigned to teams. And then we'll try to have as much display so that volunteers are able to find their checking table easily. And then hopefully there'll be coffee at these sites because it's going to be early in the morning. And it might be cold. So if you all are able to, if you're hosting it at a site, or if your site is one of our deployment sites, please think about providing coffee to your volunteers because it's going to be early in the morning and cold, or tea. So suggested deployment site areas. So just being ready, again, if you are a deployment site where volunteers will come and check in from, making sure that you have a volunteer check-in, make sure that you have masks and hand sanitizers available. And again, these we did provide last year. We provided clipboards, check-ins, masks, sanitizers, so that everybody can be within COVID regulations. And then again, refreshments are provided. And then we also provide volunteer materials such as badges that say volunteers, vests, and of course the incentive bags that you're going to take out with you. Day of the count agenda is just volunteer check-in, right? Making sure that you're waiting, giving all volunteers a couple minutes to get to the site. It is early in the morning, making sure that you're welcoming volunteers and briefing them. Just a quick orientation, we're here to count, to survey individuals in our community, and then making sure that you're assembling your teams and you know where you're going to deploy into what areas so that you can canvass and survey, and then checking out and debriefing at the end, making sure that all volunteers know that they're going to come back to that location, they're going to sign out, and you're going to make sure that all your volunteers are back and they're safe. Just debrief, how was everybody's count? How are we feeling? Did anybody encounter a specific, individual, or connect them to services, or do they need to get connected to services? So making sure that that volunteer check-in is a safe and welcoming space for volunteers. And then again, just making sure that we're always following safety tips, we're always being safe, never going into any situations or engaging individuals that we might think are not the safest to engage, which is why we do observational surveys as well. And again, we do have the immense support of our law enforcement who accompany our teams, go out and canvass, and are always looking out for everybody's welfare. So if law enforcement is present, they provide a short safety reminder to include check-in, check-out, sticking together emergency phrase. And again, please do not take pictures or videos. There will be Riverside County staff that will go and, take photos as needed and videos and interviews as needed, but we are not there to do that. Again, we want to respect that. We're there to survey and see if we can get individuals into services, and make sure that we're getting an accurate count, but we are not there to display, how their morning is going. It's early, they're being surveyed, and they're experiencing homelessness. So keeping that in mind, as well. And then final distributions of supplies and materials. We will send out reminder emails that will say, hey, we have all of the incentive bags. Your city can come and pick up however many they wanted for their city. And then those will be dispersed out to the teams. And the city will make sure that they get to all the deployment sites so that all the volunteers can take incentive bags with them as they're serving individuals. Again, we will provide KN95 masks for safety and hand sanitizers, as well as Home Connect flyers that will have the Home Connect number. And again, that number you can give to anyone who's experiencing homelessness. They can call and access services through our Home Connect, which is also our CES system. And then again, you will have the site leader's phone number if there is anything else that you might require, or you got to call somebody, and then immediate assistance phone number. So last year we did have a sheet that had the number to APS if you encounter a senior, the number to Operation Safe House if you encounter a youth, and additional resources for families with children, and veteran services. So there will be that you can pass out on the day of as well, to make sure that if those that need emergency services, they have at least a few phone numbers to call. And again, these are all things that we will provide. And then what to expect. So I encourage you, if you haven't already, if you can go to More Than a Count website. We are revamping the website for it to be under our continuum of care. So there will be a new website, but our More Than a Count website from last year does contain all the information about PIT, the dates, infographics, as well as the PIT data or dashboard for this year. And again, we'll open volunteer registration soon. You will get emails, and we will announce it at the community planning sessions as well, and at our next orientations. And then you will be required to do the volunteer training if you are planning to volunteer and participate. But again, this will be provided in early January, and all of the training will be virtual. So you just have to log in remotely to access those trainings, and just helping us promote the count in your city. So making sure that there's awareness for the count. Now you know why we do it, and who is being counted, so you can share that information. And if you do need to get in touch with Laura Gonzalez, here is her phone number and her email. She is the 2023 PIT Count Coordinator. Again, she couldn't be with us on this meeting today, but I am facilitating. I am no Laura, but I feel like she'd be proud. And then city information. So for city leads only, we will be communicating with you to make sure, that you have all the updated information. But if anything changes on your end, if the individual who we're working with for your city changes, please make sure that you get us that information. And then law enforcement outreach team contact information we're going to need for the day of the count, deployment sites that you might have already identified, number of volunteers needed, number of incentives that your city will need, and then again, supporting the youth count in your city. We did have a low turnout of volunteers for our youth count, and again, we are canvassing the entire county. So if you are able to participate in the evening, please consider volunteering for the youth count. I know that was a lot of information, but are there any questions before we end our meeting here? Oh, what did I do? Any questions, comments, concerns, quejas? There better not be any quejas. I'm just kidding. No? Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, Thank you all so much. Will we be provided with the PowerPoint slides? Yeah, I can provide the PowerPoint slides. Again, feel free to, I'm gonna put my email in the chat. I will send out a follow-up email by tomorrow, just following up the recording of this orientation and the PowerPoint. But again, if I do not get it to you, please email me at mguerra@rivco.org. And if any questions do come up, feel free to call or email at any time with anything that you might have. But if not, then thank you so much, everybody. And I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving break. Linda, what you got for me?
I'm sorry, really quick. I just want to say thank you. It has been an amazing presentation and fun to be a part of. You make it fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate that. Look at me blushing. Anyway, if no one else has any amazing remarks for me, then I will let you all have a few minutes of your day back. Thank you all again for joining us and joining Pitt. And if there's any information that's not clear that you need further, assistance with, if you want to know how you get started, how you start getting involved with Pitt, please email me, give me a call, let me know how we can get you started. And if you need to get excited about Pitt, call me. Let's talk about Pitt Camp because it's important. So thank you all so much again. I will see you all later. Jesus, can we